Hi, everybody. It's Dominic here. For the last few weeks, I haven't been putting my blog on this channel for reasons which I have explained, and so I thought it'd be quite nice if I were to still make a video occasionally and say hello. And I thought I'd use this forum to pay tribute to some people uh, by telling you a story. So many years ago now, at least 20 years ago, I was doing um, a TV show in the morning, the next morning, and I got a phone call from a friend of mine called Jeff Green, who is a very, very old friend, guy I really admire, stand-up comedian, now living in Australia. We've been to Hong Kong together to do some gigs, and Jeff was a comic I really admired, still admire, albeit I haven't seen him for years. And he said, "Don, hey, do you want to play golf tomorrow? I've arranged a game with another couple of guys, a couple of stand-up comics who I knew very well." But I was doing this TV show. I thought, it doesn't really fit with my diary. But I then thought, well, actually, I could probably take my clubs to the studio, do the television show, and then the studio will take me wherever I want to go the next day. That's part of the gig. So I thought, what the hell? It'd be nice to see the guys. I love playing golf. So, why not? Start living a bit, Dom, living a bit, playing golf. So the next morning, got up very early, got picked up, took my clubs to the studio, which is a bit odd. Normally I just turn up with a pen. Now I've got 14 golf clubs in a bag and golf shoes and what have you. Did the TV show, finished about 9:30, got the studio to take me to the golf course, which was out in West London. And I met up with Jeff and these two other comics. And they were a ragbag bunch of guys. They weren't golfers. They had, probably inappropriate clothes. And I'm not a good golfer either, but I was way better than this trio. I was the leading light in the four ball, and but I was delighted to see them. We caught up, how a gig's going, as comics do, and we got off. We teed off, and very early into teeing off, probably on the first fairway, although the boys were not on the fairway, they were in the rough. One of the guys produced a big bottle of brandy, and I thought, oh no, it's going to be one of those sorts of golf games, which I don't play. Don't drink much anyway. Don't drink any spirits at all. Never drunk spirit. And I don't want to get drunk playing golf. I don't like to get drunk anyway. So I thought, oh no, this is a nightmare for me. So I quickly on my feet said, guys, I've got a gig tonight. Can't get drunk. That was my excuse. I thought it was an easier excuse than saying I didn't want to drink brandy with them. And they bought that. Fair enough. Dom's got a gig. He's got to remain sober. Dom's a dry comic. And I said, look, I'm doing a gig at Sandown Park, which is another golf course, very close to where I live, but not close to where this place was. And it's in my head because it's got a big corporate suite. I've done gigs there before. It's where I taught my boys to play golf. So the guys were fine with that. Dom doesn't want any brandy. It's more for us. Carry on. And their golf is getting progressively worse as they drink more and more. And then a little way into the round, maybe on the sixth hole, one of the guys produces a wrap of cocaine. They're all recreational users. They all live life on the edge. They're all hedonists. And again, little me, never really did drugs, did a bit of weed at university, never done anything like cocaine or heroin or speed or ecstasy. I didn't want to do cocaine, so I hoped that my excuse of the gig would apply all equally to the cocaine. And they didn't really buy it because they said, well, Dom, you're going to be fine by tonight. I didn't want to risk it. So I said, guys, and they're bloody well taking it off their drivers. So they're putting it on their bloody golf drivers and snorting it off their drivers. And I was thinking, oh, this is terrible. And one of the guys said, Dom, next time we'll go to your club and play. I thought, no, guys, we are never, ever going to go to a club where I'm a member because I will be thrown out. Anyway, we had a great day. I remember it very affectionately. And I was reminded of it just this week because editing the podcast with Lee Mack. Lee is an old friend of mine. I'm delighted that Lee, of all my friends, has become arguably the most successful comedian of any of my cohort. Very nice man. I'm very grateful that he caught up with me. And perhaps the best part of that podcast is Lee and I reminiscing about Sean Locke and Lee's story about Sean just before Sean died prematurely of his cancer. And The reason why it was in my mind is because Sean was one of those golfers that day. So it was Jeff Green, Sean Locke, myself. And so last night I was doing a radio interview down the line on my phone in this very room to promote a gig I'm doing coming up shortly. And I saw that Steve Best, a friend of mine, a comedian friend of mine who's now a photographer who I've written about before many times on my blog. You may recall me writing about Steve. Steve posted a photograph of a comedian, and I was quite touched because I thought this comedian is, he's not a young guy, but he's still out there trying to get, his new headshots done, so it might generate some work for him. And I quite liked the idea that he'd gone to Steve for his headshot. And I replied with just, whoa, what a lovely man, what a gorgeous looking bloke. It's a sort of tongue-in-cheek, jokey reply. And I like the image as well, because I like the man and I like Steve. I'm just about to do this radio interview in here when I get a tweet from the man's daughter, Grace, explaining that her dad had died just over the weekend. And it was Andy Smart, who was the fourth golfer that day. And it was very poignant for me.
I found this on the web for
Hang on.
Check it out.
What's happening there? I don't need that. Thank you. It's very poignant for me to think now. I look back on that 4-ball, and only Jeff and I survived that 4-ball now. Andy Smart, just like this. You may not know Andy. He's nowhere near as well known as Sean. Sean had an enormous send-off when he died. There was eulogies, and the press covered it enormously. He had a clap at Chelsea, the football club Chelsea, where he used to go and watch the home games. There was a clap on his birth date. I think it was his birthday at the minute of the match. But Andy was much less known, and wasn't a great comedian like Sean Locke, but he was a great presence. He was an improviser. He was more of a host than a stand-up. He only ever really did hostings when I did gigs with Andy. But he was an incredible, irrepressible presence because he laughed at everything all the time. It wasn't one of those forced, annoying, irksome laughs. It was a fulsome, genuinely enjoying life. He was 63 when he died. And he lived life. He continued living life like he did playing golf that day. He imbibed, and he did everything. He did everything to enjoy and to augment his life. And he made everyone happy, Andy. Wherever he went, he was a bundle of fun. And if you read some of the Twitter threads about him, that's kind of the common theme. And I so enjoyed his company all the time. I haven't seen him for about 3 years. I did a gig in London and he happened to come along. And the way I sum Andy up, the best way to sum Andy Smart up is not how good a stand-up he was. He was, as I said, just explained, I don't think he would say himself he wasn't a great stand-up. He was a great man, though. And I just leave you with this. So I'm doing an Edinburgh free show, my first show in Edinburgh on the free show, which I'd written about also in Takes on Life, and the importance of the proposition between the performer and the audience. So it's free, but it's not free. The performer is expecting a contribution from the audience to cover my costs to be in Edinburgh and for my time to write the show and to do the show, which I think is completely basic. But Andy Smart came to the show, and he was incredibly affectionate afterwards, very warm. It was the show called Eclipsed, about my life, that story with other stuff around it. And he gave me a big cuddle after the show because he'd so enjoyed the show. And I don't want to be mercenary, but he put £20 in my bucket. Now, a lot of comics would have come along and just thought, Dom, we're mates. I'm not paying. We're mates, right? And I would have been okay with that because, but I was very, very touched by Andy's generosity. Not because I needed the 20 quid, just because it was a measure of the man, that he enjoyed the show. He sat there with his girlfriend, really loving it, and thought, you know what, Dom deserves me to pony up. And a lot of people wouldn't do that. A lot of people who who are lesser people than Andy Smart would have just gone, you know what, Dom's fine. Hey, Dom, we're just mates, hey, and just move on. And a lot of audience members do that as well, which I'll never understand. But Andy Smart was a lovely, lovely man. And I look back on that golf match now, and I think I should email Jeff in Australia. He'll know about Andy, and obviously he knows about Sean. But he'll remember that golf day. Although it probably sticks in my mind more than Jeff's, because for Jeff, it's probably just an ordinary 4-ball, whereas for me, it was my nightmare. Anyway, I thought I'd share that with you all. Have a check of Andy Smart online if you fancy. A lot of you will know who Sean Locke is, and he's well remembered as well. But I just thought I'd make this little video today as my tribute to Andy Smart, who's just recently passed. Cheerio. Bye-bye.